Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, phillyvoice.com, is here to kind of help us answer some of these questions. As we were talking about before you got in, Jeff, yesterday, I don't know if you heard Howie Roseman, one of the lines that stood out to me was Roseman. He called Michael Carter elite. He described him as an elite cover guy, inside cover guy, and I thought that was a kind of a hot word for me that stood out.
Yeah, that's an interesting word, elite. I mean, zone corner is what I was told he really specialized in, because when he really had his best years, he was playing for Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, and they ran a lot more zone than Aaron Glenn. So usually when you hear somebody described as an elite coverage guy, they're talking about man defense. Maybe what Howie was saying is within his zone responsibilities, he's elite in his coverage, which is possible. I don't know, but that's the book on Michael Carter.
Right. So, I mean, if you let's just play along. Okay, you got this guy who comes in and
Sure.
Right. Well, he says that's what he said. I will put the full quote up on the screen so everybody can read it. When you talk about Michael Carter, the guy has played at an elite level inside, so that gives you flexibility there. So I was kind of thinking that gives you flexibility, which is what you have from the guy that was playing in that spot, right? A guy who gives you flexibility. So I'm wondering if they view Michael Carter as a guy that they can now utilize Cooper DeJean's flexibility in a different manner.
They could. And so what we know about Michael Carter is to work him at nickel, to work him at safety. But I also think, and it's something that we talked about on Inside the Birds, is that, and I think Howie was alluding to this when he talked about the Avonte Maddox comparison, is that they've typically had somebody who could play both of those spots. And, they typically have had someone who can allow you to play some big nickel or dime to match up against some of the better pass offenses in the league. And if he's really talented and he's playing well, why wouldn't you choose that kind of a package to match up against more spread out defenses instead of trying to defend everything in nickel all the time? If you have an elite, quote unquote, elite cover guy, then throw him on the field.
No question. If he's an elite player and you can use him, I would like to. I'd like to see that, right? We would all kind of like to see that. I thought he brought up Jair Alexander. I want to kind of get your thoughts on what he said here, which I said it's almost like a gambling tout, right? He says sometimes in this league you acquire information. You watch everything and you feel like, hey, the risk is worth the reward here. So I guess, did they call Baltimore, and is it customary for Baltimore to say, hey, listen, the guy can still play, he just doesn't fit our system. He would fit what you guys are doing over there.
The first part of that, yes. I'm sure they had conversations with Baltimore about him beyond just what do you want for him, because Howie has had a very good relationship with the Ravens for years. Their GM is Eric DaCosta. He's been in the building for quite a while. He was Ozzie Newsome's understudy before Ozzie, retired and Eric became GM. And Ozzie and Howie Roseman always had a good relationship. In fact, I'm pretty sure they have houses on the Florida Panhandle very close to each other. I do recall Howie once talking about negotiating that Tim Jernigan deal, and that they traded. You remember they traded for Tim Jernigan. They flipped picks in the draft and so forth. They said that they sort of negotiated that, or the ideas was hatched on the beach somewhere. So I'm sure that there were honest conversations from the Ravens about Jair Alexander. I don't think that it wasn't that he didn't fit their scheme. I mean, they signed him because they wanted him to be the outside corner opposite Nate Wiggins, and then to be able to play Marlon Humphrey at the nickel and keep Kyle Hamilton in safety. But they didn't, so now they have Humphrey on the outside and Hamilton plays nickel and safety. So, to me, it's probably the conversations about conditioning and whether or not coming back from the knee surgery that he had, whether he was 100% at all when he was with the Raven, even if he wasn't on the injury report, was he at least healthy and good enough to go out and play and be good when he played? And clearly the Ravens didn't think he was, but maybe now I'm hypothetically talking, but maybe the conversation was, hey, maybe if you give him 4 more weeks, or by the time the playoffs roll around, he's better than the version that we had of him. Maybe that was the kind of conversation.
Did you get any thoughts on Jalen Phillips and how they're going to kind of, is he the main guy? Do you kind of feel like he's the guy? And then the other two guys are going to have to figure out their roles.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to be because he's that good and he's big. He's 265 pounds, maybe even a little bit bigger than that. And we talked a lot after Zadarius Smith retired about how much lighter the Eagles were on the edges. I mean, Jelix Hunt, 250-ish. Josh Uche is listed at 220, so maybe he's a little bit bigger than that, 230 at max, right? Nolan Smith, when he comes back, is not a very big guy. He's in the 230s. So, this is a guy who's built for the long haul. He's built to play the position, built to play a lot of snaps, he will instantaneously bring the best pass rush win rate among all Eagles edge defenders to the team, which is something that will be on tomorrow morning on the Inside the Birds platform. We have Inside the Data with Sam Finkel, and he had a lot of good data and analytics points on Jalen Phillips. So, yeah, he's the number one of your three-headed, maybe four-headed pass rush.
Yeah, Nolan Smith, the practice window is open, so he'll be back at practice. We talked about him Monday and whether or not he would play. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to play in the game on Monday, but he'll be back at practice. So you have Nolan Smith, Jelix Hunt, Jalen Phillips. I guess Brandon Graham is your fourth guy, and then Uche, or maybe Uche is your fourth guy, and Brandon Graham is your fifth guy.
Yeah, that's probably more like it.
Right, because Roseman said on the crop of edge rushers, our best teams, we've been fortunate to be in 3 Super Bowls over the last 8 years, and they've been led by our front. And I guess the one question is this front now potentially with Phillips, Hunt, Nolan better than Josh Sweat, Hunt, Nolan Smith? I guess is Jalen Phillips comparable to Josh Sweat? Can he be better than Josh Sweat?
Yeah, he can be. I mean, Josh Sweat has played really well. And Jalen Phillips, I think we all have to see. I mean, we can all speculate on it now, but the reality is he's had 2 major lower leg injuries, the ACL and the Achilles, in back-to-back years. So I don't know what kind of impact that has had on him. I don't know if he's not as good of the player that he was 2 or 3 years ago because of it. He could be. He could very well be that player. And then, yes, he's just as good. Or right up there with Josh Sweat. I wouldn't look at it as this year's edge rush versus last year's. I would look at it as this year's 4-man rush versus last year's. And one thing I noticed today, Brandon Thorne, you probably know who he is, right? He tracks a lot of the offensive line and pass rushers around the league. He had a list of the best win rate guys in the league, and man, Milton Williams is right up there. So that just shows you when you have Sweat and Milton Williams last year, that's tough to replicate, especially with Jalen Carter this year playing well, but not as dominantly as last year. So I think the question is, will their 4-man rush be as impactful going forward this year as it was last year? And that remains to be seen.
What did you make of the answer he gave on A.J. Brown yesterday? Did you get any kind of he said, I think that you're trying to be a great team. It's hard to trade great players. He wears the C for a reason. I think he went out of his way to say that. He's an important part of this team, of this organization. He cares about winning. He cares about his teammates. And I think when you're a team like ours that is looking forward to the opportunity to compete for a championship, you just don't get rid of guys like that. We feel very lucky to have him on our team and excited about the second half of our season. Is that a ringing endorsement of, what are you guys talking about?
Well, see, that's the funny thing. I think Howie has grown and he's learned, and obviously winning 2 Super Bowls and going to 3 gives him a little bit more of a security about himself. The first 5 years in the league, there were times Howie would just straight up BS people. And if you asked about something like this, he would almost say, I don't know why, I'm not going to comment, or I'm not going to talk about a player who's not on the trade block or things like that. But he knows the narrative out there, and he knows why it's out there, and he knows that there's truth to some of the narrative of AJ not being the happiest guy in the world. So he's not trying to sugarcoat that, but he is trying to tell you. So he's not trying to deny that there might have been conversations or speculation about it. But what he's basically saying, and I think he's right on this, is that what benefit is it to the Eagles winning a Super Bowl to have AJ Brown not on the team?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a ringing endorsement that he'll be with the team in 2026. I can't tell you that. I don't know. I want to see how the rest of the year shakes out. But to me, I never really thought that he was going to be traded this year because it goes against what they're trying to accomplish.
I agree with that right there. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, PhillyVoice.com. Coming out of this, they're going to play this Packers team. We've been asking our listeners to vote which team worries you the most in the NFC race right now. Packers, Lions, Rams, Seahawks. Packers only getting 5% of the vote right now. Where do you think they should be on that list?
You know why they're only getting 5% of the vote? It goes into one of your favorite sayings. Everybody only remembers what they saw last, and what everybody saw last was the Packers losing at home to an okay Carolina Panthers team, right? So now all of a sudden they're not fearsome. But listen, that's a team that has a lot of talent. They can absolutely win the game. They're good. They're a little bit banged up. You know, Jacobs has been banged up, and of course Golden hurt, and losing Tucker Kraft really is a big loss for them. And in fact, I'm a little surprised that they went all in on Micah Parsons, but then didn't try to go get themselves like a David Njoku at the trade deadline to continue to be all in. I know it's not the Packers style to make a whole lot of headline splashy moves, but if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, I feel like it just got harder by losing Kraft because he's that good of a tight end. So, but they're a good team.
Yeah.
They have a good coach who has a good feel for the game and good play calling. And every time they play the Eagles, it's been pretty close. The game in Brazil was close. The playoff game was close. I mean, they tend to be some kind of ugly. In fact, at the Brazil game, weren't they leading after the first quarter? Because Jalen had 2 interceptions early, and then I think the Eagles had to come back in that game. So I expect a pretty tough game. The Packers seem to play to the level of their opponent. So the opponent on Monday night is going to be a really good one.
Moshe, we'll get you out on this. The Cowboys made a trade. They get Quinnen Williams. They traded a first-round pick in 2027, a pick in 2026, which is a second-round pick. They're 3-5-1. Do you like the move for Dallas?
No, I don't, because we talked about this a little bit through text yesterday. I thought both the Cowboys and the Colts took Kyle Schwarber 2023 type swings where you're going for the fences, but there's a good chance you're going to strike out also, because I just don't understand if they feel knee jerk is what I'm saying. They gave up a lot of really good future assets to win now when I'm not sure both teams could afford to sacrifice those future assets to win now. If you're looking at the Cowboys, you get a great player in Quinnen Williams, no doubt about it, right? But he's in his second contract already, and you just gave up a first-round pick and a second-round pick, so you're hoping to get like 3 to 4, maybe 5 good years out of Quinnen Williams. But this year, to me, and I know they don't think this way, they're not winning the Super Bowl this year, so this year is already a wash on it. And you gave up a first-round pick. They draft well in the first round. Outside of Mozzie Smith, they've drafted well. That's like a guy that you want to have around for 6 or 7 years at least, making an impact, along with a second-round pick who can be a starter and play at a starting level for you, maybe a really good one like a Cooper DeJean type player, and give you 5, 6, or 7 years. So they gave up too much to get a guy who's going to help one part of their defense, right, for the next 3 to 4 years. But are they going to be good enough? Their quarterback makes a ton of money. He's getting old and he's always hurt. Like, they might need a quarterback in a year or two. So I just thought I just didn't see the sense in it. I think they view themselves now as instant contenders, and I don't for the Cowboys.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got Jadeveon Clowney, who I think is on the back nine. Logan Wilson, who got benched by a team that's defense is pretty horrendous.
Right.
So that's the two, they brought Clowney in early in the season, then Logan Wilson.
Their secondary is a mess.
To me, there's too many good teams for them to even make the wild card this year.
Yeah.
I don't even see them as a wild card team in this season.
I mean, maybe they're in better shape for it. I have to check. But like you're saying, there's a lot of good NFC teams.
Maybe they think the West teams just beat each other up down the stretch. They got to play each other, and the Seahawks full. I don't know. We were looking at this earlier. The Seahawks haven't really beat a good team this year. The Rams haven't beat a good team this year either. That being said, Dallas, come on. You lost
Whoa. The Rams haven't beaten a good team this year?
They don't really have a
I thought
standout.
Did they not beat the Colts? Did they?
They did beat the
Am I
Colts. Yes,
incorrect?
they did beat the Colts.
Okay,
They
that's
did
a
beat the
pretty
Colts.
good win, Mike.
Well, I guess I'm trying. Like, if I'm thinking like teams that came into the season with high expectations, the Colts were a team that I don't think. But the Colts is their best win.
Yeah.
They beat a banged up Baltimore team, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Tennessee, and Houston.
Yeah, I mean, well, going by your expectations going into the year, beating the Ravens would cancel out the fact that the Colts weren't considered good. I mean, they beat the Ravens. I think they're pretty good because they're very
I like the Rams. I think they're
defense,
good.
And they made a great trade, by the way, like a really sneaky good trade from a career that gives them some really good back end depth and optionality. But yeah. But don't forget, the Cowboys lost to the Panthers, right? And the Panthers are a team that could sneaky win 7 or 8 games now. So in the tiebreaker, they lose that.
Yeah. Oh, listen, I just think there's too many teams ahead of them, and this trade I don't think puts them in the division race. To me, if they're 5-3-1, this trade makes a little bit more sense. 3-5-1, I'm like, it doesn't do enough for me to give away a first-round pick and a second-round pick. He's Geoff Mosher. We'll do more, of course, all week long on Football at 4 as the Eagles get ready for the Green Bay Packers. And Mosher will be on Monday to preview that matchup between the Eagles and the Packers. We're going to be live at the Fanatics Sportsbook, which brings you Football at 4 every day here on the Sports Bash. Often imitate it, never duplicate it, Jeff.
You got it, Mike. Thank you.